Hey, what's up, guys? Phil and Jon here. We are just getting back from NRL Hunter Pro Am in Idaho. This is February 2026 as a recording of this. And we pretty much do a real quick after action of the event, pretty much our debrief, improved sustains, and then we actually go through the survey that they send out about how we felt the match was. So hopefully you enjoy the episode. If it's fresh, especially if you're looking to maybe shoot your first NRL Hunter match, or maybe even shoot a Idaho match with Brian Neese and Seth Howard as your match directors. I'll just say it off the bat, don't hesitate on shooting any of their matches because they're one of the best match directors, I believe, in the Western region here. So hopefully you guys enjoy the episode. Let us know if you have any questions. And yeah, enjoy the show. Ooh. Morning, dude.
Good morning.
Granted, we've been right here for a couple hours.
Yeah.
Packing your stuff, grabbing some thumbnails, and having a couple meetings with some partners. We are post NRL Hunter Idaho Pro Am 2026, the second annual Pro Am. And all I have to say is that super fun format, really great time. Seth and Brian Neese put on a phenomenal event as always. What's to be expected, and one of the things that we want to talk about is obviously an after action for us. But thankfully, in time, they sent out an NRL Hunter Pro Am survey, which is great because I think we'll just use that as kind of like our format.
Yeah, it's perfect for an outline.
Yeah. But one of the things that we did, so the last podcast that you should have heard was the expectations with Ian, and yeah, throughout the match, going into it, right, there was new things that we were kind of bringing into the fold with regard to like workflow, using this CSF,
Yep.
Not the Knife Force CSF with the Fire 4000 on top, and really, because I was shooting Pro Am with Eric, for me, my expectation was see if I like this workflow of the Night Force spotter, and get Eric kind of just like his first match in the books. You know what I mean? And the thing is like he, based off of how he performed, he shot better than me. He had a higher score than I did, right? Like he realistically didn't need,
Yeah, he's shot matches before, maybe not NRL Hunter format, but he's shot matches before, and like given his background, he understands finding targets. He understands like the proper workflow. So I still think it was great to have you there, kind of give him little tips and tricks along the way. It just shortens that learning curve even just a little bit more for him. And it makes it a fun experience, right? Like, I like shooting, PRS and single shooter format stuff, but NRL Hunter as a team is by far my favorite. Just like the team dynamic in it, like working through, like, I think keying off each other, right, is a lot of fun. And like when you're both in the zone and on a roll, it can be a lot of fun. As we'll probably talk about, it can get a little frustrating at times when you feel like you're letting your partner down. For sure. But it's definitely a blast. And I'm sure that having you there made the experience even better for Eric. Yeah.
What was fun, what I always enjoy about these events is, number one, the kind of the mini reunion aspect. I've been obviously shooting for quite some time, and it's nice to see different shooters that I've met, throughout my career. Team AI guys like Rhett, Riley Foster from R3D Legs. Who else? Night Force guys, meeting new industry kind of partner, or not partners, but friends like the new Leopold guys, and then obviously spending time with the president, Travis Ishida, is always a good time. Travis and I go way back from my SoCal days, and I think I was most excited about meeting Matt for the first time. Malator.
That was the first time you've ever met him.
That was the first time I ever met him in person. Yeah. So Matt Molitor, He does all of our artwork for the cadre. Also a scout sniper. He's a law enforcement officer down in Florida. And yeah, he's just a great dude. And he just had 2 kids, or he has 2 kids. He just had another kid, which he's currently at the tail end of his baby leave. But Everly Stock brought him out. It was super cool to be able to talk with him and just see, one of my, I guess, like big aspirations is to, inspire other snipers to get back behind a bolt gun, right?
Yeah.
If that's like the core of like why I create content, of like not only obviously the organic of like, or the byproduct of being able to invite or inspire maybe hunters or regular civilians to go out to competitions, but really like going back deep into my roots as a sniper, like getting guys that, when they get out, they kind of lose their sense of purpose. It's like, hey, you can still shoot a bolt gun after the fact and you can have just as much fun, right?
Yeah, and I mean, we've talked about that before, how, you think about a lot of guys when they get out and they transition into, post-military life. I feel like a lot of dudes struggle because they don't have the dudes around them every day. You know what I mean? Like, at the very least, when you're in, you wake up and you go to work with your best friends every day, right? And then one day that stops and you have to, make new friends, build a new community, whatever it is. But I feel like getting them into competition, especially like precision rifle stuff, the one thing that I've seen time and time again is the community is so welcoming,
For sure.
so friendly, and it's really tight. Almost, slightly different in a lot of ways, but almost like, the sniper or the, other communities.
Yeah.
So if they had something like that, that they could fall in on, or, just, transition right from military into continuing to do that, I think it'd be extremely beneficial.
For sure.
Just for that, continuity, right? I guess mental health aspect of it, having dudes that you can rely on and feel a part of that team, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's a great, even if it's not like the one sole purpose, right? It's a great purpose behind what we're doing, and really bringing that to light for everybody.
For sure. Yeah, I think, if I were to envision the cadre in 5 years, we'd have loaner guns, and it'd be like guys from our community reach out, be like, hey, I want to get back into it, and it's like, oh, dude, I've got a rifle, I've got ammo, just come meet us here, and we'll take care of everything else. You know what I mean? For the guys that just want to feel what it is to get behind a bolt gun. I mean, it's obviously not going to be a sniper rifle, right? Unless we're going to be balling at that point where we have a bunch of like clones laying around. But something similar to that effect. But anyways, I think before we dive into the survey, I think one of the things that I wanted to talk about first was going through our internal kind of after actions of 3 sustains and 3 improves. And I first heard that from, I don't know if that's something that you guys would do just in the recon community, but I first heard that from Sullivan, my platoon sergeant, when I was his chief scout. And what I loved about it was just the fact that like it kept debriefs super simple and to the effing point, right? Because like how debriefs can get super just drawn out. Yeah. And so one of the things I asked in the car as soon as we got heading to the wars was 3 sustains and 3 improves. And this is something that you guys can do, in terms of just like figuring out, okay, hey, what are the 3 things that you think that you were able to sustain or maintain throughout the, event, right? While it's fresh in your head, write it down. And then 3 improves, or 3 things that you would like to see yourself improve on. That way you balance it out and not completely beating yourself up in terms of just like, oh, I just need nothing but improves, right? That's not a good way. That's not a good, healthy way to look at your overall performance, especially if you want to grow as a shooter in this sport. So, I guess we'll kick it off. 3 sustains. And again, for everyone that forgot, Jon did shoot as a team with his good friend and another great shooter, Greg.
You asked us in the car, and I spit off 3 and 3 relatively quickly. I'm going to have to think back on it just a little bit. I don't know if they'll be the same. So Greg, if you're listening to this, you can refresh my memory afterwards. But I'd say one sustain would definitely be our communication. I think, it was a good push and pull of information the whole time. There wasn't really any unnecessary information getting passed, even if it was just, me on glass talking to him, telling him what I'm seeing from the wind. Because, when I shoot first and he gives me an initial wind call, and whatever we correct to from there, right? I don't know what he's seeing when he's watching the wind, right, through his optic.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm doing is I'm telling him what I see, and then he can use that and base his decisions off of what he had seen previously, right? Yeah. Whether it's, hey, the wind looks consistent as it was, wind's picking up, dying down, whatever it may be. Or I'm just telling him, like, hey, seeing flickering in the grass and the bushes before and after the target, whatever. But I think without diving down that too far, we had a really good communication flow, especially for never having worked together.
Yeah, I agree.
In this format, right? We've never shot a match together like that. So I was pleased about that. I was also, I would say a sustain was our workflow and ability to key off each other, right? Know when one of us needed something like an extra bag, or, hey, shift your position to the right, shift your position to the left. Ability to look at each other and make little corrections when necessary. Not 100% of the time, but I'd say about 95% of the time. We were pretty good about that. And then whatever we did, I guess another sustain is just our load development, whatever we did for that, because our load development and trajectory validation, because neither of us had any elevation inconsistencies throughout the match. Going 2 days, sometimes you'll see that happen. Yeah. Things start coming apart. Things start speeding up, whatever. We were spot on. I mean, no issues throughout the whole match. A little bit of wind inconsistency, but that's going to happen. As far as improves,
before you jump into improves, one of the things I wanted to say about sustains and your trajectory validation, I had asked Greg, right? Because one of our pieces of advice to shooters that are shooting into teams, like if you can try to shoot the same bullet velocity combo, it's just going to make things a lot easier. But a question I asked Greg was, did you feel like that was a hindrance to your performance? And I mean, obviously it wasn't, right? Because I don't ever think, based off of watching you guys, because the way that it flowed, it was I shot first, Eric shot, and then you immediately followed right behind us. So I was able to watch you guys for every stage. And like you said, you guys' communication was solid, all that stuff. And just being able to, again, when it came down to those fine wind calls or last minute wind calls, you guys were able to cue each other based off of knowing what each other was shooting. And that goes back to the experience for you of like you knowing, the gun number for him, and based off of the bullet profile that he's running and vice versa. Yeah.
And Greg was shooting, I want to say 144s at like 28-20. And I was shooting 147s at 2750. I had a 7-mile-an-hour gun. He had a 6-mile-an-hour gun, the way everything lined up. So being a mile an hour off, it wasn't all that bad, typically, because like I'm going to go a little bit bolder for wind anyway. So I think it kind of rounded itself out. But as far as trajectory and feeding each other dopes, we really couldn't do that because our dopes were off, usually like 2-3 tenths. Yeah. But we were both running the Garmin paired with the, laser range finding either binoculars, or for me, I was using the Fire 4000. Yeah. So we were getting our own dopes for ourselves. The only time we had like slight hiccups was if I couldn't get my tripod high enough after I pulled that leg out and it pulled the collet off. He was just having to give me the range, and then I was just going to hard dope. But that's where having that backup hard dope comes into play. Is like moments just like that when you need to just really quick, hey, what was the range? And reference, it's right there as my backup. It doesn't fail. And it was, dead on. Yeah. All throughout the day, like I would check just periodically to make sure everything was still lining up with my hard dope, and solid.
Cool.
Yeah. I don't think it was necessarily a hindrance. I think for you and I moving forward, if we, plan to shoot the same projectile and get it relatively at the same speed, that can only benefit us.
Yeah.
It can't hurt us.
Yeah.
But I don't think
it's one less friction point that we have to deal with, right?
Yeah.
Especially if one of us can't get the ranges or whatever the case is, and I'm excited to shoot Mason Valley, or I mean all matches together, roughly running the same exact bullet muzzle velocity combo. So,
yeah, same.
So improves.
All right, improves. I'm gonna save the best for last, which is an improve for me for sure. I'm trying to remember the ones I thought of the other day. Oh, if you remember, please enlighten me. But I would say one improve, which is a simple thing, right, is even though there wasn't a lot of wind out there, at times there was enough wind to push you off the plate, right? And I think me and Greg a handful of times were hesitant to leave the plate because we were second guessing. We're like, are we seeing things that aren't there? You know, like are we imagining the wind down there because we can feel it up top? But we were relatively guarded on that backside, especially on day 2. And that's when I noticed it a couple times. We would go light on our initial wind call instead of being bold. And, we'd miss off of the side of the plate due to the wind, right?
Yeah.
And then we'd be quick to make a correction, but that first round impact would have been nice on a couple of those stages. But I would say just an improve for us is like trusting our instincts, trusting our gut, trusting what we're seeing, and not being not second guessing ourselves, right? A second one, for me in particular, this is kind of like a 2-part thing, right? So I'm going to say keep it simple twice, right? Keep it simple because a couple of those stages I would come up and we'd shoot it and I would do like, tall bipods and tripod rear, which is not hard to do, but it can be a little bit to manage, especially if you're in uneven terrain, you're having to shift things around, move in multiple positions. It can get a little challenging, right? There's a lot to manage there. And then I would talk to Eric. I'd be like, hey, dude, how'd you shoot that stage? And he's like, I just clipped in on a tripod standing. And I'm like, all right, yeah, that's one way to do it. I mean, it's not my favorite position to shoot off, but it's definitely super easy to set up and manage, right? And like all those stages that he did it, I think he cleaned.
Dude,
or shot like a 7.
I need to take a master class from him of shooting a tripod because he crushed it. And he hates tripod rear because like, hey, you want me? He's like, no. I was like, I hate tripod rear. Not that he hates it, but he knows that's a weakness of his. He's not really good at it.
Yeah, it was like our second stage of day 1.
Yeah.
It was like the woodchucks.
Yeah.
And I asked him, I went, bipods, tripod rear, which was solid and super stable. But I asked him after, he's like, I just went standing tripod the whole time. I was like, those were small targets. They weren't very they were elevation forgiving, but not wind, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So good on you, Eric. And that that's just the thing for me is like, again, keep it simple. And then the third sustain is not necessarily keep it simple, but I'll say to get better at pulling myself out and looking at things like almost like from a 10,000 foot view and like pulling yourself out of like
tunnel vision
or the decision that you've made, right? Because there might be a better option, let's say 1 arm's distance to your right.
For sure.
So
I was going to say, don't fall in love with a position.
Don't fall in love with a position or a plan, right? What did Mike Tyson say? Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth, right? Right? So just to give a little backstory, Greg and I shot great. We would have shot even better if Jon had not made a bad decision on one of the stages. It was 2 elk. There was a lot of little things that led up to the main friction point of this stage, but ultimately there was a painted position on a rock, which was like a small rock and then leading up to a cliff, right? So you didn't have a lot of room to get in there. That was your painted sighting post for that stage. Came up, threw my heavy bag down on it. In my mind, I'm already like, I'm shooting off that rock. It's going to be great. Throw my Night Force spotter on. I found 2 elk, but they were the wrong elk. So I was like getting sucked in already. Like, where's the placard? Why can't I find the placard? Which one's target 1? Which one's target 2? And then Greg was like, hey, no, those are the wrong elk. The elk we're looking for are far left side of our field of view. So then I find them. Now we're starting to, cut our time down quite a bit, trying to get ranges for them, start building my position on this rock, and it's just terrible. And I'm saying it out loud to myself, and you probably hear it, in the footage later, is like, I'm saying it out loud to myself, like, this is terrible. This is stupid. And to the right of me, within an arm length, probably just a foot to the right, is this perfect flat spot that I could have got and built a perfect prone position in about 10 seconds. But instead, I couldn't pull myself out of this decision I had already made to shoot off this rock. And I was just, fighting this mountain to make it work. And ultimately led to us getting our only stage that we shot less than, I think, a 13 on, and cost us quite a bit of points, and was a reality check, right? So my improve on that one would just be, don't get married to a plan, and be able to, when you start getting into that friction, pull yourself back a second, look at your situation and your surrounding area, and come up with a better plan, come up with an alternate, right? And also back to the last point was like, keep it simple.
Yeah.
Like when you're moving up, and we did this great, I would say, 16 out of 18 stages, right? Like look at the entire area you have, figure out what you have to work with, and then go with the best option from there. But in that one, I just went straight to like, this is the option, so definitely an improve on me. Greg didn't do anything wrong there. That was all for me. But yeah, that'd be my third. And
nice.
There's more more improves for sure. But that'd be my third one. Third big one, I think, is just being able to pull yourself out of that and just like not get that tunnel vision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are good. And I love, it goes back to like why I love competition, and and I'm gonna talk about this when I do it's like you're truly getting forced out of your comfort zone of what you would normally set up for yourself at home, right? Like, perfect example, when we were doing our train up on that Thursday, right? Like we were putting courses to fire together that we already knew the targets were at. We knew exactly kind of the position that we were going to set up based off of like just looking at the prop. And this kind of goes into our survey that we're going to talk about. But like one of the things I really loved about this match was the movement to the firing position, right? And then like being completely blind of like what the shooter in front of you was doing. You know what I mean? Whereas like I've been to some matches, like for instance, Alaska, right? Like, even though you're not supposed to look, like it's kind of hard to not look away, or like for it not to be obvious of like what the shooters are doing, right? Because like they're in plain view, you know what I mean? Like, and so with this NRL or with Idaho, it's like the pre-staging areas are in the perfect place where you can't see anything, and you're making a movement, and it's only 25 meters maybe at most, right? Sometimes a little bit of a climb, but it's completely blind, right?
Yeah.
And so it goes back to that, like, how well can you do when the conditions are set way beyond what you're comfortable with, right? Or what you're used to, you know what I mean? And you're now getting into an uncontrolled environment that we talk about, right? Mm-hmm. All the time. So no, I mean, at the end of the day, you guys took second, which is solid, right? And teams, I think teams nowadays, as you see, is just becoming a little bit more competitive, right? Because everyone wants to shoot with their buddy. It's one of those things that we talk about is like is that aspect of like, okay, I'm doing this with a friend, right? And like if I suck, I'm not sucking alone, right? But also that little bit of pressure of like, hey, I don't want to let my teammate down, right? And so that wanting to perform for that, not necessarily for yourself, but for your partner. I mean that kind of pressure is there, which is a good kind of pressure, right?
Yeah, for sure. None of us want to fail, but even more than that, none of us want to fail our teammate.
Yeah.
So it does add. It's almost like the timer, right?
Yeah.
It adds an additional layer of pressure to you, right?
So it's like wait, we talked about it in the last one with Ian. It's like figuring out who your hunting partner is, who your hunting buddies are. Yeah. You find out real quick, like after a hunt, who you wouldn't want to go hunting with again. But thankfully, I haven't found the case with anyone that I've asked to go hunting with me. So, so my 3 sustains, 3 improves, so I get a shot as a pro. Again, going back to my managing expectations, I knew going into this because this is the first time that me, you, and Eric had shot together as a team, or not like all together. Like my main focus for us was content, right?
Yeah.
And grabbing as much content as I could. And so I didn't want to stray from that. So my sustain is like, without fail, making sure that I stay true to, regardless of like, the competition person coming out of me of like, oh dude, I'm bleeding points. I shouldn't be doing this. Like, I just need to stop messing with the video cameras and just focus on the competition. Like that, if anything, is what I'm proud of myself most, because I know that mental aspect of just like not giving up is going to just help in the future when, again, when people have issues mentally and they start falling behind. That's where you can start building your mental kind of processes and mental game of like, hey, without fail, I'm going to just stick to this process, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so grabbing content was my number 1 non-negotiable. So I would say that's a sustained. Number 2, for sure, recoil management. I freaking there was not one shot that I like came completely off, right?
Mm.
And it goes back to like our positional triangle of like, when you build a position, just because you're stable doesn't mean it's a good position, right? There's so many times that I remember Eric shooting, and even Greg, a couple of shots that he took, he's like, I'm glad that I had a spotter because I didn't see or I hit that target because I didn't see where that went, right? And so one of the things that I always try to prioritize is that recoil management, especially as a solo shooter, because I want to be responsible for every shot that I take down range and be able to see exactly, what corrections I need to make or whatever. And so another thing I'll say is that there's a difference between managing recoil, right, and then being able to process your information or recovering from the effects of recoil. So like just because your reticle is able to stay on target doesn't necessarily mean you're able to process where that bullet splash. That happened at one of the very last stages that I shot, where it was the Howling Coyotes off the rocks, 2 positions.
Mm-hmm.
And that second target ate my lunch. I didn't know, just based off of the angle and based off of the fact that it was in like one of the hardest places to spot, which is when targets are in between sagebrush, right? And you don't know where the point of origin, because it's just dust, right? And you're just like, man, I don't know if that was left or right. So that would be the only time where it's like, dude, I didn't truly see where my bullet went, So that was number 2, recoil management, and 3 was definitely being okay and trusting my gut when I didn't see any wind, and just be like, hey, I'm just gonna hold center, right? And most of the time, like when I did that, I connected. The only times I really missed when it came to wind was when I was missing for too much wind, right? Never downwind of the target. And that's been a struggle that I've had more recently is overcalling wind. I had it a lot last year with my 153s shooting the regional series, is just overcalling wind and then trying to get back on the plate. Because normally when we're training for the downwind side and correcting back to target, and it's almost like, it's hard to train the reverse spectrum of that, especially with me. For the most part, other than my corrections, I dialed for most of my wind calls. I've got some footage that maybe I think I'm going to put right in the center of our widescreen here, with using the POV view. That's one of the things that I kind of enjoyed was running the POV camera, the Oakleys. But moving to improves, number 1 is using that spotter in my target acquisition process with that, right? I think what a lot of people struggle with when it comes to target acquisition is when they call it's something I either noticed is panic searching, right? And unlike binos, when I have my binos up, and we've talked about this with regard to the tunnel vision, when I have my binos up, I know that I'm able to have both peripherals, and I usually keep my glass in one area, and I'm able to pick apart within my field of view, right, while keeping glass stationary. But with the spotter, when I threw it up, I would just start immediately. If I didn't immediately see the placard, I would just start panic searching because my field of view was so limited compared to the binos that I would just start moving and stuff like that. So number 1, getting better, because you didn't have a problem. Like when I was watching you glass, there wasn't one target that you didn't find that Greg found before you with the spotter, right? So that tells me that your target acquisition process, it's possible to find the targets, right?
Yeah, I mean, and I had that that games match the other day to kind of iron out some of those kinks, because I definitely did have some of the same issues that first go using the spotter, because it is a little bit more like soda straw view than binos, like you said. And I'm the same way. Typically, I throw the binos up and I'm like just looking in a certain direction, and I'm scanning with my eyes, you know, inside the binos. Yeah. And usually, like, the field of view is so wide that you're typically able to find the placer. For sure. So what I started doing with the spotter was just dialing down in magnification quite a lot initially on that first one. But yeah.
Yeah. So second improve would be, this is definitely a PRSism, but like getting off of the X. And what I mean by that is like within NRL Hunter, you're able to essentially, as long as you're within arm's reach of the firing position, you could set up. And so one of the things that like has been drilled into me from, you know, being a PRS competitor is the fact that like I'm always throwing my bag or the rifle over the top of that blue mark, right? And I'm trying to figure out how to shoot best off of this, where, you know, there's a couple of stages. And this is what I'm excited about when we start really like dripping our footage, right? Is like, hey, how all three of us negotiated every single stage, right? And some of them was simple, right? The same, like one bag or whatever. But there's a couple stages where, you know, I ran one bag and then you guys decided long bipods, rear bag in the back. It worked out great, you know what I mean? And you guys didn't have any time issues, you know what I mean? And so I think for me, getting out of that, you know, tunnel vision of like, okay, hey, I need to put my bag here. I can like literally be like, okay, hey, in my one arm's distance, can I get into the prone, right? And that's another thing is like, I feel like because we're really glassing from the kneeling, in my opinion, especially in that uneven terrain and stuff like that, setting up a prone position is a lot more difficult than you might imagine, right? Because like now you have to figure out how much rear bag you need, and figure out where your bipods are going to go versus just getting into like a low double kneeling with a high bipod, right? Yeah. Like the you know, triple pull bipod rear. And so I was running the R3D legs, which were great. Shout out to Riley Foster for making a super sweet setup. Couple flaws in just the sense of the flex, right? But for the in like the aspects of, you know, deployment, but for the most part of what they're intended for, you know, getting to that high double kneeling in that tripod rear. I mean, it was perfect. So I'm excited to try out his 3-section leg.
Yeah, same.
From them. So so that would be my second improve. And then I would say my third improve would be, you know, that probably just getting better at you know, that initial wind call when there is wind. Yeah, I think we can always work on our wind calls, right?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's a lifelong improve,
sure.
Right?
Yeah.
No matter how good you get, you know, I wind is such like, it's just gonna get everybody. I remember talking to Brian when I was up at his place, and I was like, you feel like you have the wind figured out here? He's like, you know, some days I feel like I got it down pretty well, and then he's like, and then it just you know, takes me by surprise, you know, all the time. So even him, who's doing it, you know, 42 weeks a year in his you know, own terrain, still just, you know, getting tricked by the wind.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a perfect time to lead into the survey, which I think will help, you know, hopefully, especially if you're in the fence of maybe shooting a Pro Am or even shooting Brian Neese and Seth Howard's match in the Snake River area, because that venue specifically, right, I shot back in I think it was 2021. I'd have to look at my camera footage, but I did the same thing where I selfie sticked it. Right, I didn't have a trigger cam at that time, and I was running a muzzle brake with I was running my Tika with the KRG X-Ray, and I was running 143 ELEXs, and I remember shooting that match. I had a great time, but I think it's a solid venue, and I mean they're just great match directors to you know, shoot a match. I think they challenge the shooters in the right way, right? At every level, not just catering to the top level guys. So
yeah, I thought they did a great job.
Okay, so survey. This is a survey they sent out just this morning, actually. First question is, do you prefer the Saturday morning check-in or Friday check-in?
I was a bit What is the word I'm looking for? I was a bit hesitant or judgmental or second guessing their decision to do check-in on Saturday morning, especially when that fog rolled in.
Yeah.
And the fact that, they had the ROs that still need to finish shooting. I was like, no way we're getting done with 10 stages today.
Yeah.
But because they did such a good job, like with the flow of the match, I mean, we got 11, some teams got 12 stages done by, 5.
Yeah, 4:45.
4:45,
yeah.
Which is not outside the norm of like a day, 1 day or a day one for NRL Hunter.
Including check-in.
Yeah, check-in, power factor,
Yeah.
like weighing rifles for everybody, 100 and something shooters.
Yeah.
And finishing up the ROs and waiting for the fog to clear. So, that just goes to show they had a very good flow for the match. They had really good time management, So, I think I would still personally prefer a Friday check-in. Just to, if they're, I don't know. If there are those inconsistencies that you can't control, like the fog rolls in and it does settle for 3-4 hours, which can happen.
Yeah.
Especially if there's overcast and the sun isn't out to burn it off, right? You run less of a chance of those type of delays. Yeah. And then also it gives the shooters like the ability to fly in, get their stuff together, check zero power factor, weigh their stuff and get that good peace of mind and then get all their stuff prepped. So I think me personally, I'd probably still prefer a Friday check-in. But I didn't think the way that they did things was bad by any means.
Yeah, I agree. I think for the shooter that's flying in, and this is one of the things that, we could talk about in terms of like, okay, flying into a match, right? The very first thing that I'll say is that definitely read the overview, right? And this is why the match directors put that out there on the NRL Hunter page, is because they have, these guys have been doing it for so long. They already know the frequently asked questions they're going to get, right? And so by reading the overview, it's going to save you a heartache in terms of like, well, I haven't heard from the MDs. I haven't seen an email. I usually see an email, but like they had everything in that overview that I read, right? And I was cleared to like, in terms of like, okay, hey, what is it to be expected at this match, Yeah. And so definitely read that. But yeah, I think what I saw with a lot of people that were flying in, including Greg and even the Night Force guys that live in that area, they all went to the Parma range to get their stuff dialed in on Friday, right? Which that's kind of what we did. Leaving Cody is we stopped by the range real quick, valid our rifles after cleaning him, and then did a real quick trajectory validation, and we were essentially confident in our rifle system, knowing that we were just driving to the match, right? And so when we did check power factor, I just shot 3 rounds. I did shoot at the 100-yard target, but I didn't even see where my group was. I didn't want to know, right? I just was like, hey,
same.
I'm confident with how this rifle is performing right now. I'm gonna burn 3 rounds in the dirt to get my power factor, and I'm just gonna roll with it. And that's the thing is, another thing is like I was like 8 feet per second off. Like my muzzle velocity was like 20.
Yeah, I was a little
26-35.
I was like the same, like 8 to 10 feet slower.
Yeah.
Which, not a huge deal.
Yeah.
But I didn't adjust anything.
Yeah. So that's what I typically won't do is I won't adjust anything. Is I'll just run. It's like, hey, my data's lining up the way that it was. And the only thing that we changed, obviously, was our atmospheric conditions, right? Which we had to drop to about 2,300, 22,000.
Yeah, 2,300.
Coming from Cody, we're roughly around 5,100. But yeah, I could go either way. I do prefer the Friday check-in, mainly from a content creation standpoint of just like, having the check-in day, being able to meet with shooters that you might not, run into at the match, right? Because of where you guys are squatted.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's nice just to see who's there and catch up. But yeah, I definitely see, I understand why they're doing it is so that goes back to like shooting 2-day national level matches are hard because you're typically sacrificing 4 days, right? That Friday and that Monday if you're flying in, but
I mean, it's definitely a benefit in that sense, right?
Yeah.
Like for guys that can't get that Friday off, like you get there, you fly out late Friday, get in there that evening, and you can just check in Saturday, and you can fly out Sunday.
For sure.
Definitely benefits to the Saturday check-in.
Yeah.
I think just me personally, I prefer a Friday. But it's not something I'd get any bit upset about. If they move to a Saturday check-in, like, okay,
for sure,
cool.
Okay, next question is, how clearly marked and easy to follow is a course from stage to stage? There's 4 categories: extremely clear, easy to follow; mostly clear with a few confusing spots; somewhat unclear, difficult to navigate; frequently confusing or poorly marked. I didn't have an issue with. I thought it was easy to follow. I never felt like I was in danger at all or putting myself into the firing line. I think the flow of which you get from one stage and you move to another again was clearly marked, right? And they said it in the safety brief, hey, make sure you keep the red flags always to your left.
Yep.
Right. I felt like it was easy.
I would say, I 100% agree. There was only one spot, and it was on day 1 when we were moving to our first stage. That got a little confusing. There was like a big gap in the red flags, and it was basically like a kind of like a fork in the rocks. And there was 2 flags up here, which were like a staging area from like coming from the other way. And then there was 2 flags over here, and it was like, which way do I go? But that was literally the only time, and it was like, if you went the wrong way, as soon as you did, it was easily corrected, and you're like, oh, okay, no, down there. So I would say, it was well marked, easily to follow.
Cool.
At no point did I feel unsafe.
How would you rate the quality of the stages? Variety, creativity, and flow. Excellent, good, fair, poor. I'm an excellent on this game.
Yeah, I think it was great. It was. No 2 stages were really the same, right? And sure, some of them are like, okay, I'm gonna go, just a front bag on this one. Or I'm gonna go tall bipods and tripod rear on this one, and that happened a few times, but it was always different situations, different terrain to work from, different angles of the targets. I thought it was great. I really liked some of them because it gave you the option to shoot prone. I think on most stages, right? But there was you could get prone, but then there's also a great spot to do tall bipods and a bag off a rock in the rear, which is really nice. So no, I think, stages were great. At no point was I like, this again? You know what I mean? It was always like, all right, cool. And to your point earlier, because they did such a good job of keeping you blind to the stage, everything was a surprise. You're like, as you're running up, you're looking and seeing oh, okay, this is what I got to work with. So and it was at no point where we were like, I got a leg up because I know what's coming. So great job on that, guys.
How challenging did you find the match overall? Oh, before the one thing I did want to say, the quality of stages. Again, this goes back to their experience as match directors of and me as an experienced shooter is I think they had a perfect balance of when they were going to challenge shooters that separate them, and then when they were to pick you back up, right? In terms of an easy stage, right? I felt like that is super important for, again, looking at catering to the newer shooter of okay, hey, this stage specifically might really challenge the amateurs or the new shooters, right? But it's set in place for maybe more of those experienced guys to separate, have a separation, right? But immediately following that was a stage that should be cleanable, right? Or at least 80% get your hits, right? Like that, big Bobcat target, right?
Yeah.
As long as you found it, and then, we're able to build a somewhat of a position, or even I think it was the wolf target off of the 4 different rock positions on day 2. So I think, the variety of flow, and that what makes, in my opinion, Seth and Brian really great match directors, because they're both competitors as well, and they understand that kind of pain point, but they also, they're keeping that newer shooter in mind, right?
Yeah, you have to have the competition aspect of it for your top level guys, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, the stages that are going to separate them.
Yeah.
Right. But then you also want everybody to have a good time. You know what I mean? So if you're just going out there as a new shooter and just bombing every stage, you're like, why am I doing this to myself? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like I just paid match fees and ammo and travel just to come out here and shoot dirt.
Yeah.
Like I could do that at my house, So
Yeah,
they did a great job.
How clear were the instructions for each stage? I mean, pretty simple, right? I think the placards were easily identifiable, and they were straight and to the point, right? Goes back to if you're unfamiliar with the NRL Hunter format, there's only 2 or 3 different courses of fire. 1 position, 4 targets, 2 position, 2 targets, and then 4 positions, 1 target, right? So the most that you'll ever shoot is 8 shots, assuming that you follow up for every target. But if you clean it, you can clean it into 4 rounds, dead target rule once you hit it. And so, I definitely booger that up for the first couple, just getting back into the swing of things of like managing my camera. So there's a couple times like I'm asking the ROs like, hey, what was the rules for this engage, right? Definitely my bad in terms of like, hey, we're going to need to shoot from right to left or near to far, So I think the instructions, especially what's on the placard of, hey, this is the animal that we're looking for, right? Was pretty easy to understand.
And one thing with theirs too, which I really liked, is they had actual pictures of the actual target that's out there. Because I've seen it before where it's just like, like a clip art image almost of like a rabbit. You know what I mean? But a rabbit target can look very different depending on if it's, faded white, gray, brown, like rusty steel. What orientation is the rabbit, right? And which is a challenge all in itself, which I do enjoy, right? But the fact that they had the pictures of the actual targets gave you an idea of like what the size of the target was going to be and the actual like description, shape and orientation
what you're
that you're
priming
looking
your
for.
brain for looking for.
Right.
Yeah.
But, again, like each way, I can see the applicability of, right? Because when you're out there glassing for a deer, you don't know if he's going to be facing you head on. You don't know if he's going to be laying down, standing broadside, whatever, so you got to be, able to pick up on all those different indicators. So,
and what I appreciate about too is that they took advantage of utilizing some of the terrain and the defilade, right? Of like it forced you to get into a standing position to see the top half or the rest of, right? Maybe you could only see the top half.
Yeah,
right?
that was one of the stages where I had to go hard dope because I had pulled the, locking, call it, off the tripod when I extended it, so I could only get into a high kneeling at that time. And it was just low enough to where I couldn't see that first target below the rocks in front of us. So Greg just had to give me the range. But because I was looking like, and that was the one when you were like, how can you not see this? And I was like looking deep. I'm like, it's got to be closer. And then Greg finally found it right down in front.
Next was, how did you find the match? How challenging did you find the match overall? Very challenging but fair, just right, too easy, too difficult, or frustrating?
I would say challenging but fair.
Yeah, same.
Just to your previous point, like you have your challenging stages in there, and then you have your ones that like, as long as you don't get like sucked in or do anything silly, you should be able to move through pretty efficiently. And if you make good wind calls, hit the target, right?
Yeah.
So, challenging but fair is a perfect description for me.
Yeah. How would you rate the difficulty of the shooting positions? Too easy, well balanced, and appropriate. Too difficult.
I'd say well balanced. Yeah. Like I said, most of those stages, if not all, you could probably find a way to build a prone position, right? But even if you didn't, there was plenty of other options, right? Whether Eric just standing tripod clipped in, or tall bipods and tripod rear, or bipods in a bag on a rock, or a front bag. There was a lot of variety in all the stages as far as how you could move through the stage, what positions you could build. So. And it was great variety of terrain too. They really used the lava rock and the just the varying terrain really well.
How would you rate target sizes in relation to distance and shooting position? Too large, appropriate, too small?
I think I'd say appropriate overall. I mean, some of the further targets were, the elk targets, and even those, it'd be like, a half elk, like almost like a shoulder mount, and then they had the one which was like a whole body,
whole body,
which were at like 9 something,
the
I think 944,
like 9, I haven't done it yet, but I want to put, I want to I have all the distances to the target. I could for my videos. But yeah, I think the furthest target was 925, which was stage 6, which is the stage that you guys had a tough time. But I'm curious to put all this together on like a spreadsheet to see what the average target distance is. But I agree with you. I think especially if winds were a lot heavier than they were, that it would still be an appropriate size, right?
Yeah.
Because that area specifically, I've shot at that venue 3 times, two now for NRL and 1 for a PRS match. I know winds can get pretty challenging in that canyon there. So I think appropriate to the distance and the complexity of stages and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's one thing, like as a match director, I feel like in their head they want to challenge you with the size of the target, right? But they also understand, like, hey, if winds are gnarly, like, these guys are going to be missing a ton if we make these targets too small, right? Because in that terrain, the wind was so, one, you get a real good swing of, firing directions. And then 2, you're working like 2 different canyons, kind of. So the wind like that we were feeling up top is ripping at our back. Yeah. But then down below, and it's coming from right to left at our back up top. And then down below, it's left to right, at like a, 4 mile an hour, 5 mile an hour. So, overall, they did a great job, I think, sizing the targets appropriately, and keeping it fun.
Yeah. How would you rate the visibility and layout of the viewing areas? Too narrow and made spotting targets too easily, clearly marked and fair, too wide and made it difficult to find targets. I want to say there was only one stage that I was like, man, I'm pretty sure I'm on the dead center of this thing. It was this first stage with the 2 elk. I couldn't find the first one. Again, I was looking through my spotter, right? This was like the 3rd stage, right? And so I don't think I was far right enough to be able to clear the rock, stage 1, right? Because I couldn't find the placard. And, because I hadn't done this in a while of like what my troubleshooting steps are, I was like, okay, hey, I found the second target off the bat, right? And I found other placards of other stages, but I just needed to smidge over a little bit more to the right. That kind of brought me off of the center post. Then I could find that far left target. You know what I'm talking about? That far left elk on stage 1. Yeah. As we're coming down the other side. Yep. Yeah. But for the most part, I think it was pretty fair.
Yeah, I would say overall it was definitely fair as far as the field of view goes.
Did you feel the match ran on time and was well organized? Easy. Yes, very smooth. Yeah. 100%.
I mean, I think the most we waited at a stage, like staging area, was like 10 minutes. Yeah. And that was if it was like a slight backlog. Yeah. Most of the time it was like, get to the stage and it's like, hey, you're on deck. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Let's do it.
How do you feel about the quality of range officers? Range officers are always awesome. And actually what I love about this NRL Hunter format is the fact that because the ROs shot the day before, right? You're almost able to relate to like, I struggle on the stage, right? And like, and that number 1, I think builds that community aspect or that relatability of like, okay, hey, that person did this, yesterday and maybe worse conditions or better conditions, or maybe it was the tail end of that, right? So they have kind of a general understanding of what you're going through as a competitor, but for the most part, the ROs are always great. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's always nice to see the support of guys coming and helping out, spending their weekends running the match. But also another cool format, especially if you're unfamiliar with NRL Hunter, is that you're able to shoot the course of fire for free, right? You don't have to pay for match fee, but your sacrifice is that you have to stay at the stage and help RO that weekend, and you essentially have the ability to compete for points as well as walk the prize table, right? The downside, obviously the con to that is in the case that, and this I experienced with this in Belt, is like, dude, we were ripping winds on that Friday, right? Whereas like in the next few days it was completely calm. So that's the gamble that you get, or vice versa. Yeah. The last thing that I will say is that there's definitely a huge benefit to ROing, is because now you're able to actually watch 140 shooters go through that stage, and you'll be like, oh, everyone obviously has a different way of doing things, or you can learn a lot based off of their processes or workflow and pick part of like, okay, hey, I like the way that person did that. I'm definitely not going to do that. Whatever
Yeah,
that
for sure.
is. Yeah.
I mean, you're getting 100 and something demos of that stage.
Yeah.
You can learn something from every single one of.
Yeah.
And you're calling wind in your head all day long.
Yeah.
You know, and then you're hearing what they're saying for wind, and you're like, in your head, you're either confirming or, you know, I don't know if I'd go with that. You know?
Yeah.
But great for wind.
Overall, how satisfied were you with the match? Very satisfied, neutral, very dissatisfied, and dissatisfied.
I don't know what the first one was, but very satisfied.
It was,
you know, like,
very satisfied.
I would 100% come back and shoot this again next year if I'm able to. Venue was great. The lunch on day one was on point. That is going in my menu up here.
Yeah,
Damn,
it was a potato. It was a potato with ground and nacho cheese.
Yeah, it was like basically like take a baked potato, cut it in half, slice it down, you know, and then cook it perfectly, and then throw ground beef all over the top of it with some nacho cheese, like green onion and onions, I think. And
if you're watching this on the drive, I'd highly recommend, or if you're listening to this on the drive, I'd highly recommend watching this episode, because I'll probably, if I have the bandwidth, I'll throw some videos and photos up of the stuff that we're talking about.
Yeah.
How did you feel about the food provided? You just answered that. It was good, great. Even the tacos on the in the evening, or
solid.
The dinner was solid. How did you feel about the number of stages in the match? Just right, too many, could use more. I think it was just right. You know?
I think 18's
great. Yeah,
because it's just enough to where, like, if day one runs, like, you get, you know, the weather delay or something like that, right? Especially if they do that Saturday check-in, it's still manageable to get, like, at least half the stages done. You know what I mean? And then day two, you can start a little earlier if needed, whatever, like we did. And then it's long enough to where, like, day two isn't like a 10 o'clock finish, right? But no, I think 18 is a great number of stages.
Please share any feedback or suggestions, constructive criticism to help us improve future matches. Now I'm answering all the questions, but I'll send that over to you. I would say that if we're doing, I think
my bad, I didn't realize you were asking.
Oh no, I think the only thing is, you know, is if those that are able to check in have some type of steel to validate, right? Like, just to get that one last, like, you know, last ditch effort of confidence in the rifle system. And granted, like, I'd love to prove a point where it's like, you know, you could literally just get away with 100-yard zero trajectory, you know, muzzle velocity with a Garmin, and then plug that into a forward off, and you're going to be good to go, especially at the ranges that we shot at and the target sizes that we shot at, right? But obviously that's me having years of experience, not necessarily a newer shooter, right? That might be coming into this and like, hey, I'm traveling all the way from so-and-so, right? I'd love to at least get some rounds down.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, especially like you said, for the newer shooters, to give them confidence in their system and not be second guessing, you know, their rifle's performance, ammo's performance, whatever. Like, that morning when they check in, check power factor, weigh in, confirm zero, and like, hey, there's a target out there for you to confirm on. I think that just sets them up for success mentally.
Yeah, because I know a lot of shooters that don't have access to distance, right? Like, the only time they're able to shoot out the distance are these events.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, myself, if I don't travel 2 hours where I'm at right now, I can't shoot past 200. You know what I mean? So, like, being able to confirm real quick, like the games match I just shot at Gravestone, the weekend prior, I think, you know, they have the 1,000-yard range open, which is completely separate, which is nice about that venue. The 1,000-yard static range is completely separate from where you shoot the match, as far as like on the property. So you can get out to, they have steel from 354, every 50 all the way out to $1,000, which was great. And definitely just like gives you that little bit of peace of mind.
Yeah.
So I don't really have any critiques for them, I think, to make it better than it was. I'd have to think on it when I actually do the survey. That would be, yeah, that would definitely be like one of a like a nitpicky type thing, like right, having some steel out there at distance
Yeah.
for check-in day, so
Yeah.
guys can just confirm. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't really
Yeah.
have much for
Yeah.
him. I thought that was really well ran,
For sure.
really fun match.
Yeah.
Definitely come back.
Yeah. One of the things that we didn't talk about, we got super lucky with weather.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And one of the things that I had to do on day one was drop my hoodie and wear a freaking sun shirt that I didn't bring initially. But yeah, I would definitely say that we got super lucky with weather. It could have gone either way, but it just goes like, hey, proper prior planning, right, and just being able to carry, right, and like, obviously, I'm a prima donna. I said that in my gearless video of like, what I bring to a match, but I'm always in the camp is like I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it, right? Especially if it's like a sun shirt that's easy and lightweight to carry.
If I mean, when you relate this to hunting, if I go out on a day hunt in the mountains, like I'm gonna have layers. I'm gonna have rain gear because the weathers make their own mountain, or the mountains make their own weather. The mountains make their own weather, and like you said, it's not all that heavy, right? We invest in quality gear that's pretty lightweight, right, and does the job really well. I'd rather have it and not need it. You know what I mean? At the very least, like, I mean, we saw it happen this year. You can fall and break your damn leg. And now you're stuck on the mountain. Like, and you're going to want warm layers, and I mean, it's unpredictable, right? February in Idaho, and we were shooting the match in T-shirts. So, definitely.
Is there anything you've seen at other matches that you'd like to see here?
No, I thought that was I mean, every match has like its little different things. I don't think there's anything I'd particularly say like, oh, they should have had this. One thing that I like that that Surge did last year from Mason Valley, I think he's probably doing it again this year, is like on check-in day on Friday, he had like a mile target, and it was a big competition, like a charity type event, like a fundraiser, right? You put in a certain amount of money for as many shots as you want to take, and then it's like who can get the most consecutive hits at a mile, right? And then there's a prize that you win, right? But then like all that, those like tickets basically go to a fundraiser. So that's kind of a cool event. Gives guys something to do on that check-in day, and it doesn't really apply to this one, but I thought that was something cool for that specific match that I haven't seen all the time at other places. So
side competition on check-in day for a fundraiser type.
Right.
Fundraiser type, not event. What's the word I'm looking for? Cause. Yeah, I like that. Cool. I'm gonna submit that. I think I'm obviously gonna go back. Right, Seth and Brian were awesome.
Was great.
I really want to check out Brian's match in Julietta. That venue completely different from what I've heard. Just shooting in trees and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
But that's like sandwiched after our match in Belt.
It's after Belt.
It's after Belt. Yeah. So,
it's end of May.
It's end of May. Yeah. But, So what is next for us on the horizon? John's taking off here shortly. We were able to knock out, and hopefully by the time this releases, we have majority of your videos knocked out on the cadre, which is essentially how you traveled to get here, like what was in your pack, and how you spread load of kind of your gear and stuff like that. That's a common question that we get. So hopefully, again, if you're a new shooter that you're like trying to figure out, okay, like I want to fly to a match, like how do I best organize my gear and my kit? We do it, we recorded a video of John doing that. And then we've got our both rifle breakdowns of what we're running for open heavy, right? And what we're going to be, I think I'm going to be running that main setup throughout the majority of the season, maybe minus the carbon barrel, right? I think I talked about moving to steel as long as I'm able to make weight. right? But yeah, I think really just turning and burning, getting ready for our California classes in 3 weeks, as well as Mason Valley, shooting that as a team. And, we'll shoot pretty much the rest of the matches that we'll shoot together for NRL Hunter will be as a team.
Yeah.
And if I'm able to fit another NRL Hunter, I do want to compete in factory class with that Tika, my Rough Tech Light, and show just the capability of that platform and be able to win maybe a factory division trophy. We'll see. But yeah, that, and then you've got a hell of a schedule too.
Yeah.
For work, so.
Yeah, busy year all around.
Yeah.
But definitely looking forward to the next couple of matches that we have coming up and working as a team again.
Yeah.
It's been a while. The last time we did was
Sheep
Mountain
Yeah.
in 24.
24, yeah.
So
That was a rough go. For both of us. I definitely need to put. We should definitely put some footage out on that. I have all of that. We should. I think there's a lot to be taken away, and I'm curious to watch them, especially if I were to cut those up, push them to you, and then we can kind of see, and then hopefully if Brian's able to come record us for Mason Valley, where we were at and then where we're at now, you know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, I think getting ready for Mason Valley, and then really, I think the last thing is appreciate everyone that took the time to say hello, right?
For sure.
To us and the team. I know sometimes, there's some hesitancy there in terms of like not wanting to be a fanboy, but it goes a long way, right? It makes us enjoy doing the content that we do, right? To bring life and joy into this sport of precision shooting, right? Although we are passionate about snipers, I think more or less more recently, especially my transition out of the military, I'm just more passionate about precision shooting and shooting things at far distances on very small targets. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, looking forward to seeing you in 3 weeks for Mason. Yeah, like I said, for Mason Valley and our California classes. So if you don't know, we've got 3 sets of California classes. We got a foundation, precision, advanced precision, and a performance competition. And we'll actually be pretty stacked with our instructor crew there.
Yeah.
It'll be me, you, Eric, and Steve will join us for majority of the classes. I think he's going to be missing day 1 of one of them.
Yeah, I think he misses like the first day.
Yeah.
And then he's here the rest of the time.
But hopefully by the next episode, we've got some exciting news with regard to NRL Hunter and the cadre. So I won't release that egg out yet, but we got some fun news with the NRL Hunter. Talked to Travis Ishida with it about how we can best support the NRL Hunter with our, expertise in training and curriculum. So maybe talk about that in the next episode and have Travis Ishida actually on here to talk about that. So
yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. So cool. Well, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Let us know what you guys liked about the episode, what you guys didn't. Hopefully you guys are, whether you're listening to this in your reloading room or you guys are on on the road. Hopefully you have a safe travel to your destination, whether it be work or for a match, and that you are safely conducting, safe practices in your reloading room. But yeah, we'll see you guys in the next episode. If you're new to the channel, cruise around. We've got a bunch of content with regard to educating that shooter, whether you're a new shooter or even a more experienced shooter, on just elevating your overall performance behind a precision rifle and finding out your true capabilities. That being said, see you guys in the next episode. And until then, keep your face on the gun.